Alrighty, good Saturday evening to you all across Middle Georgia. I am meteorologist Noah Hauck, and I'm going to be going over the event taking place later tonight and the potential to see some other things as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Just like last weekend, kind of going to go through the forecast a few different times, just so in case anybody gets in here at a different point, they still can get the full picture. Just going to give it another couple of minutes to let a few more people get in here. I am going to have our Facebook open in case you have any questions, as well as our YouTube, since we are streaming to both of those services, and also our website as well. And yeah, we're just going to kind of go through it, and we are going to be here. I'm here right now, and then Chief Meteorologist Ryan Sinnott is going to be joining me later, and we'll be here overnight as this event starts to kick off, and especially with the threat for the potential for severe weather as we head into tomorrow afternoon. So could be a rather eventful Sunday for us here, but we're going to get through it together, and we'll just get on started. So right now we've got the radar pulled up, a few showers out there across the board, but still going to be above freezing, so not really seeing any of that frozen precipitation out there. But as we start to zoom it out, we're going to notice as we head a little bit more up towards the north, we're going to start to see more of that wintry mix building in with that pink color right here. So for our friends that are going to be in North Georgia, already starting to have some reports, at least we're checking in with the National Weather Service, of some glazing as we head up to the northern portions, especially in those mountainous areas, and especially the bigger impacts going to be up in the northern portions of Georgia. But even just across the board, I mean, this storm is just massive. If we zoom even really all the way out, we're going to see some of that snow stretching all the way back to New Mexico and stretching far and wide all the way over through Ohio and even over towards Virginia. Then we have a little bit more of this purple color right here. That's going to be a mixture of that sleet and freezing rain. That pink, that wintry mix, and then all this green right here is going to be that rain. So this is a pretty big storm and going to be impacting a whole lot of people. So in terms of those winter weather alerts, we're going to see that across the board, here in Georgia, going to have that ice storm warning from about I-20 and up. And then here in the mid-state, we're going to have more of that purple color, and that's going to be a winter weather advisory. So what exactly does that mean, and how does it differ from a winter storm warning? Well, in terms of a winter weather advisory, you just want to make sure you're taking caution. So this is going to be a step up from a winter storm watch. So this is issued about 24 hours from the event. And in this particular instance, we're really going to be focusing on that frozen precipitation, so that freezing rain up to 1/4 of an inch. So as we head towards a warning, this is going to be more on the severe side, especially in terms of that criteria and what you need to be meeting it for. So in terms of a winter storm warning, that freezing rain seeing about 1/4 of an inch or more. So thankfully, none of us going to be in that winter storm warning, and just above some of those northern counties is going to be an ice storm warning. And this is going to be still under the category of that winter storm warning, but its own category nonetheless, if it's really the only thing you're going to be seeing. And that's going to be 1/4 of an inch or more of ice within 24 hours or less. And 1/4 of an inch really doesn't sound like a whole lot of ice, but it can still cause a whole lot of problems, especially in terms of impacts. It can create extremely dangerous travel, the possibility for some downed trees, and especially widespread power outages, the more severe with the more ice you can see. So let's kind of go through the latest run of our graph model and get a sense for when we could possibly see this starting. So again, a few showers out there right now, but as we start to head into those overnight hours, especially getting into our Sunday, you notice temperatures right around freezing up in Monticello and Eatonton, and we're starting to notice that wedge building on in, especially in the north and northeastern counties. And 32 is going to be that magic number. So up in Eatonton, right about 31, Sparta and Monticello, right at 32. So that pink is going to be that wintry mix. Starting to see a little bit of that freezing rain, maybe a little bit of sleet and some colder rain down places near Macon and Forsyth, where you still have the wintry mix, but it's still going to be well above freezing. Then as we head through about 7 a.m., starting to see it get on out of here, at least in terms of precipitation. Temperature-wise, still going to be sitting right around freezing up near the northern counties, but by the time we make it towards the afternoon hours, those freezing temperatures well gone, and you'll notice temperatures are really going to start to rise, especially in those southern counties. Over towards Montezuma and Americus, already going to be in those low 60s, so quite the swing in just 12 hours of what our temperatures could be seeing. Now, in terms of potential precipitation types just across the board, as we again head towards the northern and northeastern counties, mainly a mixture of that sleet and that freezing rain in that purple. And as we head to more of that pink, right along that I-16, I-75 conjuncture, starting to see more of a cold rain and a little bit of sleet and maybe a little bit of freezing rain mixed in as well. And then primarily towards the south and the southwest, really just going to be expecting some of that cold rain. But here in middle Georgia is right where that 32 freezing line is going to be making its way on through. And the extent and how long that wedge is going to sit around is really going to be important in determining how much you could be seeing, especially in terms of potential ice accumulation. Now, this is the latest run of our graph model, staying consistent with what it said yesterday up in Monticello and Eatonton, closing in on 0.2 of an inch. And then as you go a little bit more south, not seeing nearly as much. But especially when it comes to ice accumulation, it's not going to be just that freezing rain. It's also going to be including some sleet as well. And sleet is going to be those frozen ice pellets. So whereas typically with our freezing rain, you just had that very shallow layer of cold air at the surface, sleet, you're going to have a bit of a thicker layer of that cold air, so you can have it get those raindrops refreezing to actually become pellets before they come to the ground and just instantly freeze like that freezing rain. Now, ice accretion would be just from that freezing rain. So ice accumulation is both of them, but ice accretion is just the freezing rain. So that's the buildup of that ice on top of those surfaces. So although those totals said just about 0.2 of an inch up near Monticello and Eatonton, possibility that it might not be all just freezing rain. And something that can make this actually worse is going to be those wind gusts. So right now, I'm still going to be seeing those winds out of the north and the east. And that's because that wedge is starting to build into place because we have a very strong high pressure that's going to be using the Appalachian Mountains, kind of like a funnel to get some colder air down here into middle Georgia. So right now, wind gusts for probably around those low 20s. And then as we head throughout the remainder of the night, especially during those overnight hours when we expect some more of that frozen precipitation, that wind can really help to whip around some of those power lines and make power issues all the more worse. So just something to keep in mind as we head throughout the remainder of tonight and heading into tomorrow. But you'll start to notice as we get to tomorrow afternoon, we're going to see a sharp change in those winds. Primarily going to have some southerly flow out here, but as we head over here, you're going to notice a pretty sharp change in that direction. This is where we're going to be seeing a cold front that's going to be making its way through the middle Georgia area as we head throughout tomorrow. So even some of those wind gusts by tomorrow evening, possibly being in those upper 30s. Now, what exactly does that mean for us here in middle Georgia? Well, it means we have the chance to possibly see some severe weather as well. So kind of a very complicated forecast, especially a complicated setup heading into tomorrow. So noticing this green right here, that's going to be that level 1 marginal risk. But as you head towards down here with that yellow color, this is that level 2 slight risk. And as we zoom in specifically for middle Georgia, you don't really see this all that often. It's fairly rare, but you're going to notice this winter weather advisory right here and going to be included in some of the potential for that severe weather as we head throughout our Sunday. So starting the morning with some frozen precipitation and ending it with the possibility to see some severe weather out there. And again, highest risk out there would be that level 2 down near Americus and Cordele. So this means there's the potential to see some scattered severe storms. So somewhat uncommon, especially as we get closer and closer to severe weather season. So we could see a tornado or two, mainly going to be seeing those damaging winds and just a small threat for hail. So just something to be keeping in mind as we head throughout the remainder of tomorrow. Now, in terms of temperature, they're going to be showing us a pretty good temperature swing here in a minute, but this is where that wedge is going to be setting up, noticing those below freezing temperatures right along the north and the east. So as we head throughout that afternoon hours, this is where it could be quite a big difference. Up in Eatonton, right around 38. As you head all the way down towards McRae and Abbeville, at 72 or 73 degrees. So quite the contrast from just to the north and just to the south. Again, one of the things just making it very complicated with these two different interactions of that wedge and that low pressure making its way northward, bringing the potential for that severe weather. But even once we make it past this weekend, especially heading into Monday morning, we still have some other issues to be worrying about, especially temperature-wise, being below freezing for a lot of places. And with it still being very windy after that cold front moves through, they have issued a cold weather advisory for Monday morning because wind chills could be anywhere from 0 to just 15 degrees. So a very, very cold morning out there. So we'll use our feels like temperatures or that wind chill to really give some perspective. So right around 8 p.m., really going to get those storms getting on out of here. And you'll notice that blue wave really starting to set in here into middle Georgia and getting more of a northerly flow to bring in more of that Arctic air. And then by the time we make it to about 5 and maybe even around 8 a.m., possible feels like temperatures just in those mid-teens. So up near Monticello, right at 14, Macon 17, and then typically our warmer areas still only going to be in those low 20s to even those mid-20s. So regardless, a very cold morning, which gives the potentials, if any leftover moisture we have from those showers and possibly some storms on our Sunday afternoon, to refreeze. But as we head towards the afternoon hours, the warmest it could be feeling like by the time we make it to Monday afternoon, only in those upper 20s for some, to maybe those low to mid 30s for others. So just a very cold day out there. And as we head into Tuesday morning, could be feeling even colder, nearing those single digits for some, especially up near Monticello and Eatonton. So just something to keep in mind, especially even once we make it past this weekend's event. So we still do have those weather warned days for later tonight, heading into tomorrow, and especially on our Monday for a very, very cold start. And really throughout the remainder of the week, thankfully, all of this seeing more of that sunshine, which I definitely appreciate, but even still, temperature-wise, going to see those lows sticking within those low to mid-20s and highs really only into those 40s as well. So even once we make it past the chance for some frozen precip tomorrow morning, to the potential for some severe storms, we'll still have a very cold week ahead here in middle Georgia. But okay, so we've made it through kind of the first run of what's going on right now. So I'm just gonna go through, kind of check, see if there is any questions people have, and then we'll kind of run it back through, do it another time, just in case anybody has joined in the meantime, especially while I was explaining it. And just, yeah, we're just gonna run it through one more time. Just been a very, very busy week and a very complicated forecast nonetheless. But I hope everyone is staying safe out there regardless of what does happen. So out there, hey, good evening, Jordan. Hope you're doing good. Hey, Angelita, hope you're doing okay. And then Emily's asking, will Houston County have any icy roads in the morning? As we head into Sunday morning, not really expecting those icy conditions. And here we can go back to that temperature forecast real quick as this switches on over. So we'll go put this to about 6 a.m. tomorrow. So still could see a couple showers out there in those overnight hours. But primarily down near Warner Robins and just Houston County in general, it doesn't look like, at least right now, that the wedge is going to make it down there. So sticking within those low 40s, so that's still well above freezing. But in general, the models sometimes don't have a good job of picking up on that wedge and exactly how far it could travel. So not saying you can't get down to maybe in those 30s, but still sticking probably above freezing. But now when the more of a concern for refreezing would be heading into that Monday morning. So you notice kind of right around, let's say 8 a.m., sitting right at that freezing mark of 32. So you could get a little bit colder, especially with those winds out there. So just something to keep in mind. So in terms of a refreeze, more of a threat going to be heading into our Monday morning. Let's see. Okay. So I think that's it for right now. Again, if you have any questions in the middle of me doing this, feel free to drop it down in those Facebook comments and or YouTube if you happen to be watching from there. And by the time I get through it another time, I'll go back through and reread them. But for the time being, we'll just run through it one more time and start off with that radar. So if you're just now joining us or just joined us in the middle of me kind of going through that whole spiel, I'm meteorologist Noah Hauck, and we are going to be here overnight as this event starts and kicks off, especially heading into tomorrow afternoon. But right now, really just seeing a few showers out there, but thankfully temperature-wise, still going to be above freezing, so that's some good news for right now. But as we can zoom this out and really head towards the north portions of Georgia, starting to see more of that wintry mix building on in. That's going to be here in that pink. So already getting some reports from our partners at the National Weather Service. There's a little bit of a glaze, especially in those more mountainous areas. But as we head throughout the remainder of tonight, the bigger of those impacts are really still going to be expected in the metro area. But even as we zoom all the way out, just to really get a scope for what this winter storm is going across, you're going to notice all the way even towards New Mexico, seeing some of that snow and stretching all the way across towards Ohio, West Virginia, and even over into Virginia. And some of those warnings even extend up into New York, New Hampshire, and even Vermont. So this is just a very big storm all the way around. So more of that white color is going to be more of that snow. And as we have more of this purple right here, more of that sleet and freezing rain, this pink right here is that wintry mix, and then the green is going to be that rain. So really kind of seeing all of those precipitation types at play. So in terms of more of those winter weather alerts, you're going to see up towards our north into the I-20 corridor and above, going to have this deeper purple. Those are going to be ice storm warnings. But as we zoom into here in middle Georgia, we'll have more of a light purple. That's going to be a winter weather advisory. Really going to be into here, these two top rows for these counties. But what exactly does a winter weather advisory mean, and how does it differ from a winter storm warning? Well, in terms of an advisory, it's more of a cautionary thing to be telling out, especially just 24 hours out from the event. So it's going to be a step up from that winter storm watch, as you're going to be expecting some sort of that frozen precipitation. But for this specific event, really want to be focusing on the chance for that freezing rain. So within a winter weather advisory, you could be seeing freezing rain to up to 1/4 of an inch, and it still could be causing some problems out there. But in terms of a warning, that's going to be a little bit more serious, and you want to make sure you take action. Thankfully, not really seeing that right now here in middle Georgia. This would be issued about 36 hours out, as the criteria is a little bit more severe. So in terms of this event, again, want to be focusing more on that freezing rain. So that could be freezing rain of 1/4 of an inch and higher. And that seems like not a lot of rain, or really not a lot of ice, but it can cause a whole lot of problems. And again, just to the north of the I-20 corridor and above, that ice storm warning. So that's going to be 1/4 of an inch or more of ice within just 24 hours or less. And just 1/4 of an inch can cause extremely dangerous travel, the possibility for some downed trees, and even widespread power outages. So again, doesn't seem like a whole lot of ice, but still can cause a whole lot of problems. So let's just run through our latest run of that graph model. Again, temperature-wise, still going to be above freezing at the moment. And as we head into those overnight hours, starting to transition to more of a wintry mix up in those northern counties. And you're going to start to see that wedge building in, that shallow layer of cold air. Temperature-wise, right about freezing at Sparta, Eatonton, and Monticello. And then over here in Forsyth and Macon, still going to be in those upper 30s to maybe those low 40s. So even though we'll have more of a wintry mix, likely won't be sticking and or freezing at the surface if it's going to be above that 32 mark. Then as we head throughout the remainder of that morning, by the time we roll to about 7 or 8 a.m., some of that precipitation really starting to get out of here, and then those temperatures are going to warm, especially by those afternoon hours. Even by the time we make it to 1 p.m., places down like Americus and Cordele already in those low to mid 60s. So quite the temperature swing in just 12 hours. Now in terms of what precipitation types we could be expecting throughout tonight, so in that purple, so mainly the north and northeastern counties, a mixture of sleet and freezing rain. So those are going to be the areas with the biggest concern. And then as we head to that split of 75 and 16, maybe more of just a cold rain and some of that sleet mixed in. Of course, could see a little bit of freezing rain, but more of that concerned up towards those northern counties. Then as we make it to the south and the southwest, more likely just a cold rain. So that's the best case scenario, and that's what we hope for, to see more of that cold rain than anything else, because that will be the least concerning, or cause the least amount of problems, I should say. Now in terms of the potential for some ice accumulations, this is kind of consistent with what we saw yesterday up in near Monticello, Eatonton, and Sparta, close to about 2/10 of an inch. And it's come up a little bit in terms of near Milledgeville, Gray, and Forsyth. That contour was a little bit more south, so it has raised a little bit. But again, models are not the greatest with capturing that wedge, so it could be a little bit further down and could extend, allowing those totals to be a little bit higher. And that's why we're going to be here overnight, because depending on how far that wedge goes and how long it lasts, could change these totals, and especially up in those northern counties, possibly 1/4 of an inch or more. So that's why we're going to be sticking around and really waiting out to see what exactly does happen. Now in terms of that ice accumulation, you might think it's just going to be that freezing rain, but it's also going to include sleet. And sleet is going to be frozen ice pellets, and it's going to form similarly to how freezing rain does, because you have a cold layer, then a big layer of warm air, and then right at the surface, a very shallow layer of cold air. And that's why that wedge is so important, especially for the freezing rain. When it comes to sleet, that cold layer at the surface is going to be much bigger, allowing those raindrops to freeze for a little bit longer to become those ice pellets. But for just freezing rain alone, and that accumulation is going to be known as ice accretion. So ice accumulation is sleet and freezing rain together, but ice accretion is just going to be that freezing rain. So those totals I just showed you, possibly up to 2/10 of an inch in Monticello and Eatonton, could be a mixture of freezing rain and sleet as well. So just something to keep in mind. Now something else that can also make this a little bit worse is if it's windy out there. So right now, I'm primarily going to be seeing a northeasterly flow and possible wind gusts around those upper teens to those lower 20s. And why this could be problematic, especially with the chance to see some of that freezing rain, because once you get that ice on those power lines, they start to weigh down. But if you add in a little bit of wind too, it starts to whip them around. So not only do they have the chance to sag and possibly snap from the weight of ice, they have the chance to whip around and whip into other power lines and cause even more outages, let alone just from the ice itself. So as we head towards those overnight hours, about 2 a.m., could still be seeing some of those gusts in those upper teens to maybe those low 20s in a couple spots, and then still sticking around to right around 5 a.m. And then as we head towards those afternoon hours, you'll start to notice there's going to be a pretty good shift in our winds. For most of middle Georgia around 6 p.m., going to have more of that southerly flow. So this is where we get to see that warm surge, and that's really going to be competing with our wedge and helping to mitigate some of those freezing possibilities. So even some gusts possibly around those mid 30s to those upper 20s, so rather windy out there. But you'll notice off to our west, a pretty big shift in that wind direction. So right here, that's going to be a cold front, bringing the possibility to see some severe weather as we head throughout our Sunday afternoon. So in the morning, dealing with the chance to see some frozen precipitation, and by the time we make it to the afternoon hours, the complete opposite end of the spectrum to see some severe weather. So let's just break this down because there's a lot going on the screen. So over here, we have those ice storm warnings and those winter weather advisories, and then down towards the south, this green right here is a level 1 risk for severe weather. That yellow is a level 2. So let's zoom it in specifically for us here in the mid-state. So again, having to deal on the same day, the chance to see some frozen precipitation, and then the chance to see some severe weather. That level 2 threat just barely making it into the southwestern portion down towards Sumter and Crisp County. So what exactly does a level 2 risk mean? Well, it's going to be a slight risk. That means there's the possibility to see some scattered severe storms out there. Level 1 is more of an isolated chance, so level 2 is bumping it up to a scattered chance. So it means there's a chance to see a tornado or two, damaging wind gusts of about 60 miles an hour, and some hail mixed in. So just something we're going to have to be watching, especially as we head throughout tomorrow afternoon. So let's see if I can actually get our graph model in here, and we'll kind of go through what that looks like here in a second as this loads. So go through, so this is tonight's event. So starting to see that mix over to wintry precip throughout those early morning hours. And then as we head to once that's getting on out of here and getting more of that moisture in that warm air, that's when we start to see that line of storms. So right about 1 p.m., getting to right around that Georgia and Alabama state line and holding together rather well. So as we bump it up to about 2 or 3 p.m., you're gonna notice starting to make its way throughout the mid-state and still holding together, still seeing the chance to see some of that heavier rain with that red mixed in. And then by the time it makes it to right about 6 p.m., getting on out of here, at least the leading edge of some of those storms. So about 2 to maybe 7 p.m. is the rough timeline for when we could be expecting the potential for that severe weather. And again, down towards Americus and even Cordele, having the chance to see that level 2 risk. And then just behind it, still having the chance to see some more of that widespread precipitation. And again, going to be that rain at the moment because it'll still be above freezing. And then getting on out of here, and things will be clearing on out heading into Monday morning. So that's why even once we make it past this weekend for the chance for frozen precip and then the chance for some severe storms, heading into Monday morning, the chance for a refreeze. And even just besides the fact that we could see a refreeze with leftover moisture, it's just going to be downright cold. We do have a cold weather advisory in for some places across middle Georgia from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Monday, because wind chill values could be anywhere from 0 to 15 degrees. So very, very, very cold weather out there. So let's just run through some of the more of the model runs for those feels like temperatures, otherwise known as those wind chills. So right about 8:30 p.m., still seeing some remnants of that warm and moist air out there in those low, or really the mid to upper 50s. Then you'll start to see that blue wave really set on in and more of that purple with that colder air. By the time we make it to about 5 a.m., already seeing some wind chill values in those low 20s to maybe even those upper teens. And then by the time we make it to about 8 a.m., places like Monticello and Eatonton right at 14 or 15, and then over towards Thomaston right at 13. So just a very, very, very cold morning out there. And even by the time we make it to the afternoon, right around the peak heating time, to be expecting more of those warm temperatures. Still will be rather windy out there, and feels like temperature-wise going to be in those upper 20s to maybe those mid 30s as well. So even as we head into Tuesday morning, could be even colder. We're going to see, let's run it back just a little bit. I think I saw, yeah, so there's the potential to maybe even see some single digits with those wind chills heading into Tuesday morning. So even once we make it past this weekend, going to be a very, very cold start to the next work week. We still do have those weather warning days in effect for tomorrow and for Monday as well, because of the chance you could see some more of that refreeze. But by the time we make it towards the rest of the week, thankfully featuring a lot more sunshine, which I'm a fan of after this past week. But you'll notice temperature-wise going to be in those mid to maybe those upper 40s, but low temperature-wise sticking to below freezing for the remainder of the week. So just something to keep in mind, even once we make it past tonight and tomorrow afternoon, it'll still be cold, so you want to make sure you keep that winter gear on standby because it'll be rather cold out there. But okay, let's see. That was pretty much all I had for the moment. Not expecting any of our models to update for at least another hour or two. So what I will say is that myself and Chief Meteorologist Ryan Sinnott, who will be joining me soon, we'll be here overnight, especially to be updating as this event kind of picks up specifically for Middle Georgia during those overnight hours. And then again, for the threat for some severe weather as we head into tomorrow afternoon, we'll definitely be here and monitoring that and making sure you guys are staying safe out there with updates across the board. So just checking in one more time into those Facebook comments, maybe even some of those YouTube comments as well. And we will kind of leave it at that for now and then come back and update maybe in 2 or 3 hours, getting closer to the initiation of some of that wintry mix right around 12 a.m. and kind of check in then. But for now, things are okay. Still seeing a couple showers out there, thankfully above freezing for those temperatures. And yeah, so I'm just gonna check in on this real quick. All right, Spencer said, what about Washington County? So let's go back to our winter weather alerts and zoom that back in. So Washington County is going to be under a winter weather advisory. So that just means that you still have the chance to see some of that frozen precipitation, like that freezing rain and some sleet. In terms of totals, again, this is going to be the combination of the two, of that freezing rain and that sleet. It says right about Sandersville, maybe 0.06 of an inch, so not quite to a tenth. And again, models are not very good at picking up that wedge, so some of this pink contour representing ice accumulations could still be a little bit more towards the south and over towards the west as well. So that's why we're going to be keeping updated and really staying overnight, because the fact that wedge, if it's going to overpower what these models are saying, could have the chance to see some higher totals right here. So you still are going to be under that winter weather advisory, so just something to keep in mind. All right, in Baldwin County, that was Sweet Karma Shonda, so let's check in with that as well. I believe they're also going to be under that winter weather advisory. Yes, so you're also going to be under the winter weather advisory. So the exact same advice I just said with Washington County, the chance to see some of that frozen precipitation and really heading into those overnight hours, and still have the chance to see some potentially strong storms as we head throughout tomorrow afternoon. All right, and Sarah asked, will there still be lingering ice on the road on Tuesday morning? It's hard to say, just because on Monday, temperature-wise, by the time we make it to the afternoon, still going to be in those mid to upper 30s, so not a whole lot above freezing, but still enough to have some of that ice melt. Still definitely something to maybe keep your eye on, but I wouldn't say it's as big of a concern. Morely going to be a concern on Monday morning, because that'll just be the following night after seeing all of the chance for some showers and those storms, especially some of those showers lingering close to those overnight hours. So still possible, but not really as big of a threat, I would say. All right, and then as we head, someone's asking about Fort Valley and Hawkinsville. So let's see, let's zoom in here. Get a different map because this one's not going to zoom. Let's see, here we go. So Fort Valley is going to be over here in Peach County. Right now, not going to be in any sort of winter weather alert, not a winter weather advisory, not going to be under a winter storm warning or an ice storm warning, but still have the chance to maybe see more of that cold rain, maybe a little bit of sleet mixed in. And I can't say that you won't see any freezing rain, but if you do, it looks to be rather limited, so not really expecting a whole lot of impacts over there. And in terms of Hawkinsville, more of the same deal, more of likely just going to see that cold rain, possibly a little bit of sleet and very little amounts of that freezing rain. For you two, that's mainly going to be a bigger risk for that severe weather because you're still going to be included in that level 1 risk. But still something to just keep in mind as we head throughout those overnight hours and heading into tomorrow. Excuse me. And then Henry County is just outside our DMA, but they are going to be under that ice storm warning. So that just means that there's the possibility to see a 1/4 of an inch of ice and or more. And that can cause a lot of problems. Extremely dangerous travel, the possibility for some downed trees, and the possibility for some widespread power outages. So that would be a 1/4 of an inch or more of ice just within 24 hours. So if we go back to our winter weather alerts graphic, it's a little bit more spread out. You'll notice the ice storm warnings are going to be from right about that I-20 corridor and up. So Henry County right over here is going to be right at the bottom of that ice storm warning. So you're still definitely included in that. So that's more of you should be making sure you're taking those precautions during those overnight hours. Make sure you're not traveling because even just a 1/10 of an inch can cause a lot of problems. So I'm going to see if I can find another graphic in here that can kind of better dive into the specifics for like how much ice can cause what kind of impacts. Here we go, just gonna get this loaded up. So even just a 1/10 of an inch is going to see that widespread icing, already seeing some dangerous travel conditions and possibly even some power outages. So that ice storm criteria for that ice storm warning at just a 1/4 of an inch is a step up. And even up towards the metro area in northeast Georgia where they could see possibly even up to an inch, it's very, very devastating once you get to an inch or more because travel will not be possible, long-term power outages, multiple downed trees, and just overall a long recovery time. Not so much because the ice will be sticking around, but rather because the power outages will snap those poles for the power, so they've got to go and reinstall those and reconnect the lines, and then it just will take a while to get those trees on out of there and out of the roads. Thankfully here in Middle Georgia, again, not going to be in any of those ice storm warnings, but still going to be within this range right here to possibly see some widespread icing in those northern and northeast counties. Of course, we could see a little bit more than that and getting close to that 1/4 of an inch, so that is why we're going to be monitoring it during those overnight hours, especially as we head into early tomorrow morning. Warner Robins, that was Lori, so let's go over that as well. So you guys thankfully are not going to be in any sort of winter weather alert. You're just going to be below it. So in Macon Bib, not going to be in it, so Warner Robins just down here. Also not going to be in any of these winter weather alerts. Of course, still have the chance to see a little bit of sleet and maybe just a little bit of freezing rain, but primarily expecting more of just a cold rain. The bigger issue is going to be tomorrow with the threat for some severe weather. Again, going to be in that level 1 threat right there. And in terms of the extent of the potential for some of that freezing precipitation to come a little bit south, it's still definitely possible. Again, all thanks to that wedge because it's very stubborn and likes to stick around, and the models aren't the best at really handling it. So it's definitely possible some more of that ice could get a little bit more to the south and a little bit more towards the west. So that's why we'll be monitoring it during those overnight hours. But at the current moment, not going to be in any winter weather alerts. All right, those are the extent of the questions that I've gotten right now. So again, main things that we're going to be watching throughout tonight. Right around 12 a.m., starting to see the transition from that cold rain to maybe some more of that wintry mix and or frozen precipitation for the northern and northeastern counties, those that are going to be in that winter weather advisory. So that'll be from about 12 to maybe 6 or 7 a.m. And then as we head towards the afternoon hours, going to be more shifting to our focus on the complete opposite end of the spectrum to the chance to see some severe weather, that level 1 risk right here in that green, then all the way down here near Americus and even Cordele, a level 2 risk. So a lot going on as we head throughout our Sunday, but we'll get through it together. We'll make sure that we are keeping you guys safe. But for now, that is all I have, and we will be back in a few hours close to the initiation of some of that frozen precipitation to give more of a better update into possibly what things have changed. But for now, I'm meteorologist Noah Hauck, and we will check in